Hello, Sudoku friends. Welcome to the New York Times Hard Sudoku puzzle. Today is July 28, 2023. As you know, I like to spend a few minutes at the start to familiarize myself a little bit with the grid. It makes it so much easier later on to remember where to place numbers. Look at this top row here. It's completely empty. Well, that's something we'll have to change, isn't it? While I'm looking over the grid, I'm seeing these sevens blocking across and blocking these 5 squares. So a 7 clearly must go here. And now we have a 7 blocking here and here. And we have a 7 blocking here. So it's clear that one of these is a 7. And that's something. Then we have 7 candidates in these 2 squares and in these 2 squares. I'm not looking for specific digits. What I'm looking for at the beginning of every puzzle is patterns. And when I say patterns, there are 2 kinds of patterns that I'm looking for. One is the digits themselves. I'm not even looking at a 1s or a 2s or 3s. I'm just looking at the shape of a digit. And that's how I found these 7s. Another shape that I'm aware of is a 5. The 5 blocks down and the 5 blocks down and this 5 blocks over here. So a 5 is forced to go into this square. And once I find a number like this, I immediately start looking to see if that has any ramifications at all. And in this case, it does. Because we got 2 5s now blocking these squares. And we got this 5 blocking this square. So here's a 5. As I said, I'm not even looking at numbers. I'm just looking at shapes, the shape of the various digits. They might as well have been, geometrical shapes or different colors. It doesn't really matter to me whether they are digits or something else. Of course, digits makes it easier to count later on. If you have, let's say you have a row like this and you say, okay, I've got 5 givens. What's missing? Missing is 2, 9, 6, and a 3. That makes it easier. In this case, for example, we do have a 2 and a 6 here. So we know that these 2 squares must be 2 and 6, and these must be a 3 and a 9. And as soon as I realize that, I start looking for more 9s. So I know that one of these must be a 9. I also know that the other one must be a 2, because we have a 2 blocking across here, and we have 2s up here. So 2s and 9 must go here. You would also just say, well, we have a 2 and a 9 blocking here. So that leaves a 3 for this square. And since we know that these must be a 3 and a 9, we know that a 3 will have to find a home in one of these 3 squares, and we have 2 3s blocking these 2. So a 3 must go here. And that is basically how I solve all puzzles. I'm also acutely aware of the 6 and a 7 here and the 6 and a 7 here. They force these 2 squares to be a 6 and a 7. Once I know that, I remind myself that these had to be a 3 and a 9, right? So if these are 6 and 7s, it follows that they cannot be 9 as well. We have a 9 blocking here and here, and we know that one of these had to be a 9. Therefore, this couldn't be a 9, right? And that gives me this 9 here and this 3 here. There's really nothing to it for puzzles of this level of complexity. The New York Times hard puzzles are rarely more complex than this. So let's move on. Let's look at these 3 squares. They must be a 1, 8, and a 4. And in this case, I don't think I can do much. I do, however, see the 8 blocking down here. So one of these is an 8. And therefore, we are going to have an 8 in one of these 2 squares here. So all of this was just without a lot of thinking. It does involve a minimum of logic. It's just a matter of observation.
Observations of...
Another observation is that we need a 9 for column 4. This 9 blocks here, here, and here. This 9 blocks here, here, and here. So this is where the 9 goes. Now we need to find a 1 for the same column, and this 1 blocks here. So a 1 must go here, here. And that means that a 1 will have to go here, here, here in column 6. There's a 3 and a 5 blocking across here and a 3 and a 5 blocking up. So 3 and 5 must be found within the boundaries of these 3 squares here. I'm looking at the 6s now. The 6 blocks here, the 6 blocks here. A 6 will go here or here. So these being a 2 and a 9, and we need a 7 still for the bottom row. The 7, of course, blocks here and here, and the 7 blocks here. So here's where the 7 goes. And now we know that this must be a 7. I think I mentioned it before. Let me do this again. This 7 blocks here, this 7 blocks here, this 7 blocks here, and this 7 blocks here. This is the only square in row 3 that can be a 7. 1, 4, and 8 for these squares, right? Because these are 2 and 9. We got a 1 blocking down here, so one of these is a 1. And we know that one of these had to be a 1 because we just mentioned that earlier. So here's where the 1 goes. Here now a 4 and an 8. And we still have a 1, 4, and an 8 in these 3 squares. We can't really place them yet. At least I don't think we can. So we'll move on to something else. These are still a 2 and a 6, therefore a 4 and an 8 here. I'm also seeing the 4 blocking up, therefore one of these is a 4, 2, 5, 6, 8. Here, of course, this is a 2, 6, so we got 5s and 8 up here. And since this 5 blocks here, this 5 blocks here, this must be the 5. Now we got 1 and 5 in 2 of these squares, because we got 1, 5 here, and we've got a 1, 5 here, right? We need to find a 2, 4, 6, and an 8 for these 4 squares. There's a 2 and an 8 and a 4 blocking this square. So this is a 6. And that immediately gives us a 6 here and a 2 here. And this now must be an 8. Here we are looking for a 2 and a 4. And therefore, this 2 blocking up gives us a 2 here because we have a 2 blocking here, here, and here. And this 2 blocks down, this 2 blocks up, here's a 2. 1, 3, 4, 8. This 3 blocks up, one of these is a 3. Therefore, one of these is a 3. The 8 has to go in one of these squares, of course, because of this 8 blocking here and here. Remember how we talked about the 6s, that this 6 blocks here and this 6 blocks here? Now we got this 6 blocking here. So here's a 6. Now we're looking for a 2, 4, and an 8 for these squares. We know that this is a 2 or a 4. And the 4s and 8s are still being a little elusive. So I think I'll have to look elsewhere for the next number.
Looking elsewhere.
I'm making a mental note of a 4 going here or here, and also here or here. How did I figure out the 4 here and here? Well, we know that one of these is a 4, and that will block over here. This cannot be a 4 because it's a 6 or a 7, so a 4 must go either here or here. So we got 4 candidates here, 4 candidates here. We need 4 candidates for this, for these squares here, and this 4 blocks here. So 4 here or here, and here or here. Why am I mentioning it? Well, I'm just mentioning it because this is how my mind works. Some of you have made comments about my great memory and what have you. It's not really a great memory. It's just my way of making mental notes. Some people choose to make small digits here, pencil marks. I make them mentally. And if it also trains my short-term memory, I'm not complaining. Now that I'm focused on these possible 4 candidates, I am aware that there are so many givens in the column and in the row that there might be a chance for a hidden single here. So this is where I would say, okay, let me start counting. It doesn't really take a lot of effort to figure out that this must be a 1 because it cannot be a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or a 9, does it? So this is a 1. And once I do that, I look across here and I see if I can continue in row 2. And I know that I need a 4, 6, and a 7. So there isn't really anything I can do. The next thing I do, I look at these 3 empty squares because now we have a further restriction because we found this 1. So we need a 3, 8, and a 9. It so happens we have a 3 and a 9 blocking this square, which therefore must be an 8. This is now a 3, 9 and a 3, 9 pair. Next, I'm looking at these empty squares. Since we found the 8 now, we only need to find 3 more numbers for this row. And they must be a 1, 4, and a 2. Here I'm a little bit out of luck because I know that the 4, of course, must go here or here, but this could be a 2 and a 1. And we also have 1 candidates for all of these 3 squares here. So I quickly move on to something else, and I'm looking at these 2 8s. They block up here, and this 8 blocks across, so an 8 must go here. And now I remember that these 2 squares were 7 candidates, weren't they? Now, of course, we took away 1 candidate square here, so this is a 7, and that makes this a 6, and this a 7. Now I immediately look across. I know that we have a 6 blocking here and a 6 blocking here. We have a 6 blocking up, so a 6 must go here, mustn't it? And there's only one number left to be found in row 2, and that's got to be a 4, one of the elusive 4s. Now, this 4 blocks down. We talked about how these 2 squares are 4 candidates, right? Now this 4 blocks down, here's a 4. Here we're looking for a 1 and a 2. We can't solve them yet. What are we looking for here? We're looking for a 9 and a 3. And that's equally impossible at the moment. But we do have a 2 and a 4 up here. So we only need to find 3 more numbers. And they, of course, must be a 1, 3, and a 9. Still not possible. Amazing.
Amazing.
So let's look at these squares. This is a 2, 9. We know that. We also have a 9 that blocks here. And we have a 2 that blocks here. The third digit that we are looking for in this column is a 6. This 6 blocks here. The 6 blocks here. So here's a 6. This is now a 2, 9. The 9, of course, blocks here. So here's a 2, here's a 2, and here's a 9. Now this is a 2, and therefore this must be a 1. We do remember the 2 and a 4 up here, don't we? The 2 now blocks here, so here's a 4 and here's a 2. This 4 blocks down, so here's a 4 and here's an 8. This 8 blocks down, this blocks over, here's an 8. Now these must be a 1 and a 4. We have a 1 blocking here, so here's a 4, here's a 1. So this 4 blocks up, this 4 blocks over, here's a 4, and therefore this is a 4 because this 4 blocks across, right? And this blocks down. This must be a 3 because it's the last number missing from the column. And that means that this is a 3. And now we know that this is a 3 and this is a 9, of course. That makes this square a 9 and this a 5, I believe. Yes. And that gives us this 5. Here we're looking for an 8. And therefore this must be an 8. This can only be a 1. This also can only be a 1. And I know that one of these had to be a 3. So the 3 must go here. And here's a 9. Here's a 1. Easy peasy. Thank you for watching and bye for now.